She alleges government infighting and an investigation involving complaints against her as reasons for her departure. She cited multiple issues, mainly conflicting dynamics within city government between herself, other councilors, and staff. Now, her resignation came as a surprise to many people who work and live in Tigard. Lube has not responded to our interview request, and a Tigard city spokesperson tells us no one from the city, including councilors, are doing interviews today. Council President Maureen Wolf will now serve as mayor in the meantime. Here she is during last night's council meeting.
I do want to announce before we begin that Mayor Lube has submitted her resignation to myself as council president and to city manager Brent Stockwell. I do want you to know that the council accepts that. I accept that letter of resignation with a heavy heart.
Lube was elected in 2022 and her term was set to expire in December 2026. But let's get back to that letter she posted online announcing her resignation. She wrote, throughout her time as mayor, her mental and physical health have deteriorated. And she says she's not alone, adding, as I've shared my struggles with other mayors, it's clear that this is all too common, especially for female mayors. She says that an investigation was opened after complaints were filed against her, which she says came after she reported another councilor for crossing a line. That councilor sent Lube this text, which Lube attached at the end of her letter, asking how much she paid another councilor to say something nice about her during a council meeting. A few days later, Lube withdrew her complaint about this, saying it had been resolved. Lube alleged that complaints were made against her when she tried to hold staff accountable for mistakes or when she, quote, stood up for the community. She wrote that the city is a broken system where staffers push their own agendas on elected officials. She said staff were allegedly caught sending emails from her email address with her name on them without her ever seeing or approving them. Lube went on, writing, from the outside, the Tigard City Council has looked like a functioning body, but behind the scenes has been unraveling into cliques, power struggles, petty fighting, and goals of destruction. I'm not a perfect person, and I vented to people in places I probably shouldn't have, and I own that. I also own that trying to juggle being a mayor, a mom, having a career to be able to afford living here, and be a wife and a friend has been extremely challenging. I've spent the last year or so wondering every day what is going to come at me from the council or staff. It's impacted my family, friends, and mental and physical health. It's been exhausting and demoralizing.
It's definitely a bit of a bummer. I've got, a relationship with a lot of the various city officials. The mayor's a customer here, so we get to see her. She's been really supportive since we started here. So
that's Chris Cholene. He owns this brewery on Southwest Main Street, downtown Tigard. He's also on the Town Center Advisory Commission. He says something he's always appreciated about Lube was how she supported small businesses like his.
To lose a supporter, at the mayor's office or at the city is definitely just a bummer. You don't know who's coming next, and you don't know kind of what their feelings are on small business.
Now, he says he's worked closely with city staff and that he had no idea the alleged infighting among them was as bad as described in Lube's resignation letter.
Just surprised, didn't necessarily see that coming. I don't think that city council in a small town is a lot of really experienced people that know how to get where they're trying to go. So I think it's a lot of a growing pain trying to get your feet under you as a public official and some of that stuff. So
a City of Tigard spokesperson says in a statement, at the City of Tigard, we are committed to ensuring a respectful workplace for everyone, where all people are treated with dignity and conflicts are addressed constructively. We work to cultivate an inclusive culture that celebrates diverse opinions and experiences, honest dialogue, and mutual trust. Now, others who live in Tigard that we caught up with today say they still have a lot of unanswered questions.
Just very surprised, curious. No, I don't think anybody was prepared for it. Just like, what happened? Why? I had never really heard any controversy, so.
Again, Council President Wolf will serve as Tigard's mayor in the interim. On September 23rd, Council will discuss appointing a new mayor. Now, this is far from the end of this story, because if we circle back to that investigation against former Mayor Lube, she expects the findings to be released to the public at some point, writing the report findings will inevitably come out, whether if it's released by the DA or from counselors talking. Despite advice against participating, I had hoped that truth and fairness was the goal. Since then, steps made by the city and the investigator have not been with the search of truth and fairness, but with the assumption of guilt and a goal of punishment.
I wish her all of the best because she's got a small child, and the truth is being with that kid's probably going to be more rewarding than getting beat up as a public official.
Okay, so what do you think about all of this, especially you Tigard residents? Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Well, now to an update on Multnomah County's ambulance response, a topic that we've followed for years. Well, this week, county commissioners reviewed the settlement with ambulance provider AMR, looking at things like response times and staffing. Evan Watson has led this coverage for us. He's in studio tonight with the latest. Evan.
Well, Blair, last year, AMR and Multnomah County reached a deal. The county allowing the company to staff ambulances with 1 paramedic and 1 EMT instead of requiring 2 paramedics on every ambulance. That was a problem because paramedics are in short supply and difficult to retain. This agreement boosted AMR's staffing and got more ambulances on the road. Right away, we saw a big improvement to the most alarming statistic, level 0 calls, when 0 ambulances are available to respond to an emergency 911 call. There were thousands of level 0 cases before the change, and now there are close to 0 each month. But county commissioners still are not happy with AMR's performance. The company is not meeting benchmarks for response times, getting to 90% of calls within a set amount of time, such as 8 minutes within the city. Here's Councilmember Julia Brim-Edwards.
They're not meeting their goals of timely response to people who have suffered trauma, who've suffered strokes. And we need AMR to live up to their contract, which is to show up on time in a timely way and to provide quality of care.
Brim-Edwards said she's disappointed that AMR is struggling to retain paramedics and feels the settlement is compromising quality of care.
I'm very concerned about what I heard, and the chair needs to take action to compel AMR, not ask them politely, but to compel them to live up to their contract that they've agreed to.
Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson said it was good to hear from paramedics and EMTs that their workloads are now more manageable, but the county is closely watching other impacts.
What was really concerning to me was what I heard from paramedics about the rush through training to get people into positions in a different amount of time than we had previously.
And in all of this, it's important to hear directly from paramedics and emergency responders themselves on this. One of them spoke at the hearing explaining the pressure she's under, in part because of the county and AMR's battle over metrics.
I have found myself being scrutinized over seconds of response time, routes taken due to constructions, and sometimes after a 12-hour shift that runs over due to late calls. I can assure you when a member of this community dials 911, they care that a competent, well-prepared crew arrives to help them in their moment of crisis. Training in particular has suffered. Due to accelerated timelines and compliance pressures, EMTs are being placed in the field with as little as 8 days of training, often against the recommendations of FTOs, field training officers. Paramedics with less than a year of experience are being placed into leadership roles before they feel ready, again driven by the need to meet numbers rather than readiness.
AMR points to success in getting more ambulances in service, the elimination of level 0 calls, and new training and hiring programs as evidence that the company is doing everything it can to meet county requirements. The county and AMR are still negotiating millions of dollars in fines for AMR's non-compliance with contract benchmarks, fines that could be waived if AMR meets requirements, but the company has not done that yet. Blair?
Okay, Evan Watson, thank you. Well, now to an update on a story that we've followed for nearly 2 years. Nearly 30 families from across the country are trying to sue Amazon for selling products their teens and adult children used to end their lives. The lower courts in the Washington state have gone back and forth on whether the company can be held liable. So this week, The state Supreme Court heard arguments. We do want to warn you, the details in the story may be upsetting to some. Here's Drew Mickelson.
We're going on almost 5 years now since she's been gone, and we never stop thinking about her.
Ava Passananti was 18 when she killed herself in 2021.
Being here, being able to represent her means the world.
Her father is one of dozens of parents closely watching this case.
Amazon marketed this poison, it sold it, it delivered it to the doorsteps of the people that used it.
Sodium nitrite, a perfectly legal chemical commonly used as a food preservative, can be deadly if consumed. The families of 28 teens and young adults who died by suicide after ingesting sodium nitrite say Amazon knew what the product was being used for years and didn't do anything to stop it until voluntarily banning sales in 2022.
Does Amazon have no right to sell this?
That was after the sodium nitrite suicides of the 4 people whose lawsuits are now before the court: Ava Passananti, Michael Scott, Tyler Molman, and DJ Viglis. After news of the deaths spread, states like Washington passed bans on the sale of deadly high-concentration sodium nitrite, but attorneys for the families say for too long, Amazon not only ignored complaints, they knew the product was being used by suicidal customers.
Amazon's algorithm put people in contact with a how to commit suicide book. It put them in contact with antiemetics so they could, they wouldn't throw up the poison.
We can all agree that the facts of these cases are tragic.
Amazon's attorney says the company has no way of knowing if customers are suicidal and cannot be held responsible for their actions.
They're asking and would require you to adopt a specific new novel rule that would make Amazon liable for the conscious decisions that its purchasers make after they've decided to purchase.
I think she would be very happy that we were here doing what's right for her and to save lives.
The families say holding Amazon accountable will save lives.
Ava's name will go on forever. All of these kids will, all 28 of these beautiful people that are no longer with us will always be a part of this, and this is just the beginning.
Now, it could be a couple of months before justices decide if Amazon can be held liable. If the company is liable, the final decision would be left to a jury. Well, if you or someone you know is struggling, help is available. Call or text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It is free, confidential, and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, 5 years ago, a transgender woman in Idaho sued the state over a law that bans transgender athletes from competing in women's sports at public schools. It was the first such state law in the country. Now, more than half of states have similar laws. But the lawsuit worked its way all the way through the court system, and the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to take up the case. But now that woman is asking the court to dismiss her case. So let's back up for some context. Lindsay Hecox wanted the right to run for the women's cross country and track teams at Boise State University when she filed the lawsuit against House Bill 500 back in 2020. 2 years ago, an appeals court agreed that Idaho's ban likely discriminates against transgender female athletes and blocked Idaho's law from being enforced. And then the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case during this year's docket, setting the stage for what would likely be a high-profile hearing and landmark ruling over transgender athletics. Here's what Lindsay said back in 2020 when she filed the lawsuit.
I know that this is right. It's something that I have to do. This lawsuit discriminates against me and so many others.
Lindsay was able to play for the school's women's club soccer team while the law was blocked. But she did not make the Boise State women's cross country or track teams. Then last week, Lindsay, now a senior at BSU, asked the court to dismiss her lawsuit. She says she's faced significant challenges along the way, including illness, the death of her father, and negative public scrutiny. She worries the harassment will only continue and amplify if the case continues. Lindsay says she will also stop playing any women's sport in Idaho, so her attorneys say the case is moot. But Idaho's Attorney General told the Supreme Court they plan to oppose the motion for dismissal, meaning they want the justices to hear arguments in the case and make a ruling. It's not clear when a decision will be made on whether or not the case will be dismissed, but we'll keep you posted. Well, coming up next on the story, a notorious killer has arrived in Portland, a shiny beetle known as the emerald ash borer, the signs to look out for, and what's being done to try and limit the pest from spreading anymore. Plus, a fish hatchery down in Lincoln County will soon be closing. We'll show you around and tell you the reasons why. That's when the story returns. Well, for the first time, the emerald ash borer has been found in trees in Multnomah County. That's an insect that has been devastating trees on the East Coast for years and has started to make its way into the Northwest in recent years. An arborist noticed signs of the insect on trees at David Douglas High School over the summer.
One thing I noticed immediately was that the tree was looking a little bit more stressed. There was some chlorotic yellowing foliage. And there was some blonding, like woodpecker damage, the lighter color on the bark of the tree, which really was another symptom that stood out to me.
Okay, he says when he looked closer, he saw the telltale sign of the insect, a hole about the size of the tip of a pen, shaped like a capital letter D. Now, emerald ash borer has killed 100 million trees on the East Coast over the past 20 years. The Oregon Department of Forestry says it's the most destructive forest pest right now. And if a tree is untreated, only about 1 in 1,000 will survive.
We do expect to lose 99% or more of our ash trees here in Oregon. Oregon ash is our native ash tree, and it is critical to our riparian habitats. Pretty much anywhere you've got standing water or even flowing water for more than a couple months every year, you're likely to have Oregon ash as your dominant tree species. So if you're a land manager or a homeowner and this meets your or that description matches your property, it's time to look at your ash trees and assess your risk As those ash trees start dying, you're going to lose shade on streams and waterways. That's going to heat up those aquatic systems, and that could negatively affect our fish populations because they like cool water to lay their eggs in. You could see an increase of invasive species like blackberry and reed canary grass. Without that ash structure there to shade that property, those are going to come in. You're also going to maybe see increases in flooding.
Okay, the city forester for Portland says they've been preparing for years for the beetle to arrive, but there are about 95,000 ash trees in Portland. They're planning to remove smaller trees and use an injectable pesticide on the ones they're trying to keep. There's also a quarantine in place, meaning you can't move trees or things like firewood out of the county. You can proactively treat ash trees with certain insecticides to try and fend off the beetles. But if you have ash trees on your property, check them for signs of the invasive pest, things like dying leaves and those D-shaped holes. Well, turning to Lincoln County now, where a staple of Oregon's fishing community is being phased out of commission. The Salmon River hatchery is shutting down after decades of operation, leaving big questions for local businesses and the people who depend on the river. Meteorologist Joe Ranieri has the story.
The Salmon River hatchery has been a very popular place for local fishermen to go since the mid-70s. Now, because of lack of funding, it's going to be shutting down. It's almost standing room only along this section of the Salmon River, as anglers hope for a catch as the fall Chinook salmon run start to move through.
I've been fishing this river since I was 1 year old, coming with my dad, so about the last 37 years.
Andrew Strange has been fishing and volunteering at the Salmon River hatchery for years, and like many people in this area, have been concerned about its future.
We've heard rumors about it, but it really leaves a lot of questions for this fishery. I mean, this has been a highlight of my fishing for years.
Those rumors became reality after the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife announced its plans on shutting down the hatchery.
We are discontinuing the operation of that hatchery because we've lost funding. It's really hard decision.
Tom Stahl is the deputy administrator for inland fish with ODF&W. Stahl says it takes around $500,000 every year to run the aging facility, and its location sits in a low-lying area along the river.
The hatchery is also prone to flooding, and we expect that to only, based on the location it is low in the system, and we expect that to only get worse in the future with sea level rise.
While the facility will remain open over the next few years, Stahl says they're going to be moving some of their programs to other hatcheries in the area.
We are moving the Chinook program and the summer steelhead program over to nearby Cedar Creek hatchery.
ODF&W are hopeful there will still be fishing access.
I feel like for the last 8-9 years I've been coming out here and it's been really good, so I was kind of hoping that it would continue.
That will also help the local community who depend on people coming out here in the river.
Our commerce and stuff that all the fishermen bring in from the valley and stuff, that's going to take a big hit to a lot of these little stores out here.
In Otis, Joe Ranieri, KGW News.
Well, now let's get to some of your thoughts on our big story from Monday night. Oregon Representative Cyrus Javity joined me live in the studio to talk about his political flip from Republican to Democrat. Javity represents the North Oregon coast, and last week he was the only Republican in the House to vote in favor of the governor's transportation bill. He says he's leaving the GOP because the party is, quote, not governing, but it's about burning things down. So he's registering as a Democrat to run for re-election, something that a viewer named Bill says will end Javity's political career.
I just wanted to say thank you for putting on our politician, whatever his name is, and his voting for higher taxes and fees on us in Thelma County. We can't afford it, and by him becoming a Democrat, I hope he appreciates his career, because I have no doubt when he comes up for re-election, his career will be over. But we're a very poor county, and for him to tell myself and my neighbors that we can afford to pay higher fees is just out of touch.
But the majority of your comments sounded more like this from Nancy.
I'm so proud of him making that decision. It's so many people, the Republicans are all caving into Trump, and I'm wondering if that might just start the thought of more people turning over to Democrats, because it is so untenable to be a Republican at this point.
Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. Have a great Wednesday night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.